What's up, Gator Nation? Welcome into the latest Gators Online show. Zach Abaverdi, Nick Del Torre, and it is an exciting time in Gainesville, Florida, folks. Obviously, the Gators just landed a five-star commit this past week, riding that momentum into the Grill in the Ville, which is going down this weekend, and then next week, the start of fall training camp. Nick and I will be back on that practice field, and there will be no days off, sir. So you better get your sunscreen ready.
There's 3 days off, 3 Sundays.
You counted
3
them.
Sundays off. I counted them up. Yeah. We got basically a printed out Google calendar. You can just Google August calendar, and it's one of those Sunday to Saturday. And there were 3 boxes that had no words in them.
Those are the only days off for the staff as well.
So the season is back, Zach, and usually we do this later. If you are listening to the very beginning of the show, go ahead, use that code down there. UF1 will get you 2 months of free access. Zach, you and I will be extremely busy in the month of August. So if you're listening to this, it's only for our YouTube listeners, podcast listeners. UF1 gets you 2 free months of access. Zach, that gets you through training camp and through the first month of the season. And we think if you try us out for 2 months, you'll end up being a regular subscriber. So use that code because the season is here.
Yeah. I mean, UF gets off to that hot start, beats Miami, jumps out to a little undefeated streak, then I don't think you guys are going to want to leave. But I'm sure that y'all count on that to happen. We're going to find out if that's where the season is headed once the Gators take the practice field. We have a good idea of what we think about the depth chart. We've heard all the scoop coming out of summer workouts. We provided that for you guys at Gators Online this week, a bunch of football insiders. If you missed that, again, as Nick said, go use that promo code UF1 to go read all that stuff. There's some news in there as well. So we're going to get to see this on the field once these guys start practice on Wednesday. But I do want to kind of get into what we've learned through summer workouts. Nick got to see up close and personal what it's like under Tyler Miles and this new staff. But it's continued to be a theme of the offseason. And Napier hyped it up at SEC Media Days. He kind of has said it to everybody that's asked him about the team that he thinks that this hire and just where they are from a strength and conditioning standpoint is going to make a huge difference, going to be one of the storylines of the team and why they're going to be successful this year. We'll get to some of the workouts and some of the numbers that we've seen coming out this week, Nick, but what kind of sense did you get from being in there of what that could set them up for this fall?
So basically Tyler Miles is funny. He called himself, a redneck meathead. Grew up on a farm, is a hard worker, went to school. His family owns an excavation business and just went and got a construction management degree because his plan was to go work in the family business. A construction management degree at Kansas State, I think where he was at, is one math credit shy of a civil engineering degree. So numbers make sense to him. You look at me and I might struggle doing regular math on a calculator that he just does in his head. That's really the biggest thing I've seen is that everything that they do is backed up by data. And every lift, as I'm watching the guys lift, there's iPads that are connected to everything, connected back to a computer that they can get real-time data. So you walk up, you hit your name, what the lift is, what the weight is, and it's going to measure the force of what you're lifting that weight. And then you can say, hey, listen, you've been doing 135. I think based on the velocity you're getting and the power you're getting on this lift that we can bump up the weight. And everything is very calculated. I think the other thing too, because of his young age, not every strength coach can do this, but because of his young age, Tyler Miles is doing the programming himself a week in advance of the team. And based on how he is feeling and his body's feeling, hey, we didn't program this right, we'll change this. Or, hey, this is really working. This will be good for the guys. I think that's really unique.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
And just that scientific, data-driven approach. I think the proof will be in the pudding, but I am was very, very bought in to it after I saw it in person. Now, listen, if Florida's getting pushed around on August 31st, then maybe I was wrong. But I think, right now, I think there's a lot of confidence inside the building, and the buy-in from the guys. I think, we always talk about when a new coach comes in, well, they've got to earn trust. I think as a strength coach, you start earning trust when progress pictures are taken.
Yeah.
And you're like, damn, I've done that. And when I was there, it had only been 3 months. And we're talking about guys losing 12 pounds of fat and gaining 15 pounds of muscle. And anyone that works out will tell you how hard it is to put muscle on, how long it takes. So while a lot of the numbers, when the roster gets put online on Tuesday, a lot of the numbers you'll see might not look very different.
Yeah, the weight won't change. Yeah.
But the body composition of that weight is significant. Like Damian George is still a massive person. His body weight has changed, maybe down 5 pounds, and you're thinking he needed to lose 20. And it's like, well, he's lost 20 and gained 15 pounds of muscle. So he's lost 20 bad pounds and added 15 good pounds, which is why you're only going to see a small number change. So, like I said, it's all just numbers on a page, and it could be lip service. But I am a believer after getting to spend, 2-3 days with the strength conditioning coaches and watching what they're doing and talking to them.
We've even been given some examples, Nick, of guys that have lost pounds of fat and then added muscle. And so their weight hadn't changed at all because it's been exactly the same in terms of the numbers. But I think another thing, and you've talked about it just now, but the confidence, that's a lot of that is also stemming from the players. And like we've heard and we know how probably difficult of a decision that this was for Billy to kind of blow up his strength and conditioning staff and start over from scratch. But as he knows, and as everybody knows, once players start to lose faith in any aspect of a program, you got to make a change. If they lose faith in the offensive coordinator, if they lose faith in the defensive coordinator, obviously if they lose faith in the head coach, you can go on down the list. So that was an area where they felt like, and they heard directly from guys about what they felt like needed to happen. And the results so far, and those guys that went on the table and kind of went to bat for Tyler, I think they feel like they've been rewarded with what they've gotten so far and some of the results. And I think the big number that Napier threw out at SEC Media Days was, as a team from January to April, they had 500 pounds of fat that they lost, but they also put on 500 pounds of muscle. It was like something ridiculous number out there. And he thinks that it's going to make a difference. But I think that obviously, like you said, you're going to find that out. Yeah, 500 pounds of lean muscle and also 500 pounds leaner as well. So that's a lot of weight that you're moving around. And, we got to see as they get ready to wrap up summer workouts this week, because fall camp starts next week. And I'll also add too, Nick, because you mentioned about Tyler going through the workouts himself a week ahead of time. He has also changed some things and changed the schedule a little bit. Obviously they have a calendar that they kind of follow. That's Napier's journey and their phases that they split up the year with, but they have adjusted some of the workouts and stuff. And we got to see this week, Nick, some of the videos coming out and, guys in the weight room. And, the first one that made its rounds on social media, we're watching now here on YouTube with Graham Mertz getting after. What'd you think about this, Nick?
280-pound clean, down low. Listen, as for a guy who had a broken collarbone, that's a lot of weight as you're coming up in the clean to catch on your shoulders, your front delts, and on your collarbone. So first impression was collarbone check, good.
Yeah.
Second,
yeah.
Second, 280, solid clean for a quarterback who's not a super mobile quarterback, but nice, powerful clean, good form, Graham. low squat there, below parallel.
And that energy afterwards, man, fires up the guys.
That's a PR energy.
Oh yeah, but you need that from your quarterback. I mean, that is especially. I'd be interested to see what Lagway can do there, but I'm sure he's probably not too bad with that either. So Graham's got to go in there and set the tone, and for him to be able to do that at the quarterback position was great. But this came out on Friday, Nicholas, and this definitely made the rounds on social media, and that is one freshman safety Josiah Davis. He gets after it on this squat right here.
18-year-old young man.
500 pounds. The bar is crying as he's coming up.
You're not really squatting until the bar is bending.
And I mean, that's just again, for a freshman to be able to do that, and obviously you guys are about to see, and I'm sure if you've already seen the workouts, you already know he's not the only guy in the 2024 class that's capable of this. But they got him playing that star position, and obviously Sharif Denson and Aaron Gates getting a lot of the attention there. But they really like Josiah, and obviously they like this about him and be able to carry that strength over to the football field. Nick, I would love to see him meet Jaden Baugh in the hole, because to see those two guys go at it, two freshmen, that would be a sight to see. Oklahoma drill or something like that, because if you guys were impressed by the 500-pound squat from Josiah Davis that made its rounds on X and IG, I don't know if you guys saw this as well. I wrote about it on Friday, and we're sharing it right now on the YouTube page. But Jaden Baugh topped Josiah Davis with a 550-pound squat. And as Nick pointed out, this didn't look like a surprise to his teammates, Nick.
Yeah, I'm trying to go and look right here real quick. So when I was there, Jaden Baugh had his max at that time, pulled up my little thing here, 515 pounds. So he's already added 35 pounds to that. But yeah, the most impressive thing, whenever you watch these videos and lifting in a group like this, like when we were lifting in college and in high school, lifting in a group like this, you'll add some weight to what you're normally doing, because it's just an environment that gets you pumped up. And as a player, if you see this much weight on a squat bar, you're going to pique your interest. The reaction of the people behind him was so low key that I was like, oh, this is just, and with how quickly he gets that 550 up off the ground, he's got another 20 pounds on there.
Let's get some of that. Let's get some of that audio going in here. Here he goes.
It's just like the yell to get you ready when you're down, and then after it was just like a golf clap.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I mean, that's
they were almost like, oh, thought that would be a struggle. It wasn't. Okay.
No. Again, to see Jaden Baugh and Josiah Davis, safety running back meeting, that's a lot of power that those guys are packing. And I think we already thought and knew, I think, that Jaden Baugh was going to be able to come in as a freshman and make an impact. I'm interested to see what Josiah Davis can do as well. I mean, this 2024 class, Nick, I think they're going to be counting on a lot of guys to make an impact, definitely more so on the transfer side than the freshman side, but there will be some freshmen that contribute and are factors. We wrote about this week at Gators Online, kind of 6 that are standing out heading into fall camp, and Jaden Baugh is definitely one of those guys.
Yeah, and I keep saying it. SC Media Days probably brought it more back up to the forefront. I was sitting there with Montrell Johnson. I was like, how much should you ask about Trevor Etienne. He said every single room. But with the additions of KD Daniels and Jaden Ball, I think Florida's running back room is fine. Obviously, Trevor Etienne, first team preseason all running back. The reports out of Georgia are that they love him. He looks great. We know that he's a very good football player. Really, the only aspect we ever harped on was he needed to be a better pass blocker, can improve his hands. That's a lot of things for young running backs, but I like where Florida's running back room is. You and I have been breaking down the running backs or not the running backs, the entire depth chart for the last 10 days or so. So you can check all that stuff out there. But yeah, I think I like Florida's running back room as it is.
Yeah, and obviously, look, they would love to have Trevor Etienne in that backfield. There's no doubt about that. But I think you feel good about where you are with Trayon Webb. I think Jacoby Jackson has been a surprise that is a guy that they didn't necessarily maybe think that they could count on as much as they will be able to this year. And then you got two really talented freshmen. I don't know about you, Nick. My favorite running back to use on NCAA is KD Daniels because he's got the most speed. He's got a little extra step to him, and he's got some explosiveness as well. I mean, they're in a good place in the running back room. And
here's one thing: stop if you're listening to this. Stop asking me what my gamer tag is. I'm a millennial. I'm not playing online. My beef is not with anyone else but the computer, and we're going to continue beating the computer by 21. I don't need to go online and lose by 30 to some 13-year-old kid. I got a family. I got a mortgage. I got a full-time job. I don't have the hours that I used to have when I was in college or younger to put into the game and to run practice. We just don't have time for the reps. So I'm going to continue just playing the computer. And the computer's catching these hands.
Now the question is, do you even have the online capabilities yet? Like, do you pay for that, or you'd have to go out and get it?
Say that again.
Do you have to pay for that? Like, do you already have the online? Can you play online already?
I pay for Xbox Live.
So you have the ability to do. You just choose not to.
Yeah, not happening.
I mean, because I got a PS5, but we don't have online gaming. But I've got so many people that want me to get it so that I can play them. Friends and stuff. Some even friends I grew up playing the game with. They want to run it back. So I might have to get it. But yeah, I'm not throwing myself out there. Though. I'm only gonna play people I know.
Yeah. People have been asking like, "Hey, let's run a game." I'm like, listen. I may or may not be good at the game. I don't know, and I don't really care because I don't want to
find out. I want
better than the computer.
I want to live in oblivion.
I am the Harlem Globetrotters, and I have one opponent, and we're only playing that one opponent.
That's right. Well, right now, the Gators got to worry about their next opponent. That's Miami. We'll get into some fall camp talk now as the Gators get ready to start practice on Wednesday. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to myperfectfranchise.net. If you are ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, looking for a side hustle while working your current job, wanting to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy, Andy can help. He is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership. You can learn more and contact Andy anytime at myperfectfranchise.net or calling or texting him at 404-973-9901. And Nick, we will be back out there on the practice field on Wednesday. The Gators report for camp officially on Tuesday. And they've been going through OTAs. They've got their roster fully on campus now. We'll learn the status of some guys, but I think for the most part, they're pretty healthy coming into camp. Just before we get into some of the biggest questions that we have, just what are your overall feelings about practice starting, kind of where this team is at, and what you're looking forward to see?
I think I want to see the tough part is that the questions I have offensively and defensively, I don't know that we'll see in fall camp. My questions are, as I've written multiple times, what the opinion of the offensive line that the coaching staff has and people that we speak with inside the building, what they have is not the same opinion that I have. I'm here to be proven wrong. That's fine. The coaching staff, Billy Napier has talked to us about it on and off the record. Sources we've talked to about the offensive line think it's the deepest group. I think they are deeper, but a lot of that is redshirt freshmen and freshmen who I don't know if are going to play at the level that a redshirt senior might play at just because of age and experience. I think they've done a good job of building up that depth, but I don't know if it's ready for right now. And I said that going into the portal, which was you need offensive linemen that can play right now. And I think maybe they hit on Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. I don't know if they hit on Devin Manuel. I don't think they did. But when I'm told that Caden Jones, who's a redshirt freshman, is competing for a starting job with Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, who's a redshirt senior, I don't know. That doesn't make me feel like you hit in the transfer portal. Nothing against Caden Jones. There's just several 4,000, nearly 5,000 snaps of difference between the two. And you would think that experience, especially at a position like offensive line, where it's a lot of development needed to be able to play at this level. So hearing that makes me think, is BCD what we thought he was going to be? And then on defense, tackling. I mean, my goodness, but you don't get a lot of tackling of live people. Now they do a ton of different drills and things to work on tackling. And I said last year, I was like, listen, hey, Austin Armstrong talked to us and he broke down 18 different stages of a tackle or different tackles that they would do and showed us how they're practicing each different one. And it didn't matter last year. You can't replace tackling another person at full speed. You can do drills and stuff, but you can't replace that. And that we just don't get that in football now for safety reasons. But I think those are the two biggest things for me. Can Florida tackle? Also, can they get pressure up front? I wrote about this. Florida only had 3 interceptions last year, which was tied for worst in the country with Temple. A lot of that can come off of getting after the quarterback. Mm-hmm. If you're making a quarterback, if his internal clock is sped up, he's making quicker decisions, making more mistakes, you're getting your hands on the ball more. So it's not just the secondary stinks. They couldn't get their hands on the ball. You try covering someone for 10 seconds because the defensive line can't in the SEC because the defensive line can't get to the quarterback, and the quarterback has pulled up a lawn chair and is reading a magazine before he looks up and goes, oh yeah, we have time to throw now. So to me, those are the 3 biggest questions I have heading in. I just don't know that we'll see those. Spring camp or fall camp, I'm excited to see Aaron Childs. I'm excited to see who's the linebacker? The Amir Jackson. Aaron Childs, Amir Jackson, 2 guys who we didn't get to see in the spring. I'm pumped to see them in the fall in pads. What do they look like? And then just see how some of these position battles shake out, because I think you've got 3 starting receivers, and then you got a group of like 6 other receivers all trying to get either that 3rd starting job or the 4th string reps or the 5th string reps, because you do rotate receivers a lot. But how does that shake up? And then I'm stealing all of them, Zach. You don't have anything to talk about. And then
we haven't even got to the biggest questions section yet.
And then running back. How's that pie divvied up? Last year, it was basically 95% of the pie was eaten by Trevor and Montrell evenly. And then the other 5 was like a bunch of different people. Does Montrell get 80% of the running back carries this year? Does he get 85% of the running back carries? What's the shakedown of that?
Yeah, no. And because you got some other guys that are going to be probably worthy of getting some carries as well, but you want to feed your senior running back and feature him. You know, before I get into some players that I'm looking forward to seeing, one thing that I want to get Nick's thoughts on, and this kind of stems from our discussion about the offseason and summer workouts, but I am curious how this could carry over into the fall. Certainly once practices start, but even into the season. Napier did something different for the first time this offseason, and Nick had learned about it when he went in to watch workouts. I wrote an insider this week that was scooped from summer workouts that you can read at Gators online. And this was one of the first things that I highlighted in that report. They have basically instituted a strike system this offseason where you have to show up on time for everything. And if you show up late to anything, whether that's class, whether that's workouts, whether that's a position meeting, whether that's tutoring, if you need rehab and you're supposed to meet with a trainer, if you show up late to anything, 6 a.m. the next day, you have to show up for some type of, punishment. Some guys have to run. So it differs with each guy. But that is something that they had never done before, and obviously probably couldn't do when they first came in as a staff, and maybe didn't feel like they had the roster to the point where you could even do it last offseason. But this year, they have. And, some guys have missed some meetings, and there's been some consequences. But now they've kind of got this ship running smoothly, and for the most part, they're not having any more hiccups as they get ready to start fall camp and practice in the 2024 season. Nick, just your thoughts on that and what that says about where the team is at and how that could show up maybe in the fall, let's say, when they got to run out for special teams.
Yeah. In college, I was late to a morning conditioning. So that practice, and we practiced for 3.5 to 4 hours. I had to do walking lunges from foul pole to foul pole for the entirety of practice. And it was 340 down the lines, 420 in center field. It's a lot of lunges. I lunged for 4 hours and I never was late again. So I get it. Sometimes it's not like a corporal punishment or, hey, please don't do that. You guys show up. Sometimes it takes you having to go and do extra. If that doesn't work, now, hey, you've gotten to the point where your position group is coming early and they were all there and they know that you're the reason that they're waking up at 6 a.m. to do extra. And then you can get to the point where the entire defense, and you can get to the point where 130 other guys are being brought in at 6 a.m. because you can't get out of bed into where you need to be on time. We're done calling them student athletes. They're paid. Some of them paid extremely well. I think Florida, as a lot of schools are fining guys. Hey, you're late to this. This is $50 or whatever the case is. You're going to get fined. We're reaching that level. But yeah, it's a new level of accountability for me personally. And I think a lot of people would resonate with this. If I had to do something, maybe the example I gave you, I had to do something, and I learned after one time. But I think once you start affecting, and your decisions start affecting your teammates, your roommate, your locker mate, the rest of your position room, the rest of the defense, once it starts affecting them, you're going to hear about it from them. Mm-hmm. Because I was on time to my 9 a.m. lift. Why did I have to come tomorrow for 6? Oh, because you weren't on time? No, sir. Zach, you would have been a bad teammate with your timeliness. Zach would have made the whole team the best conditioned team in America.
I'm telling you, it's a good thing I'm not on a strike system, because my wife I would have struck out with her a long time ago.
Chloe's a saint.
But I did find that interesting that that's something that they've instituted, and I do think that that's going to create more accountability, discipline. As Nick said, wanting to show up for your guys, and for this team to take the next step and to have a turnaround season and do all the things that is going to result in a winning record. It starts in practices and habit building like that, and now that carries over into fall camp. So, we've got a bunch of players that we're looking forward to seeing. Before we get into our biggest questions, some guys that I am excited to see and see what they look like, see how they've maybe developed over the offseason since we last saw them in the spring. Cam Jackson is definitely one of them. He was listed at 374 in the spring. He's now down to 357, and he spoke with us openly in spring about wanting to get down to 340 and how that was so key to him having the type of year that he wants to have as a senior. So, interested to see where he's at and also where Jamari Lyons is at. That is a guy that I wrote about this week as one of 8 players that are trending up this offseason, getting ready to head into fall camp. And he is a guy that is, while Jackson and Des Watson have had their weight issues, Jamari Lyons has done a great job kind of getting where he needs to be, maturing off the field. Like the coaches, they can count on him more now than they ever have before. And honestly, because of those guys' issues, the other guys at the position, it's kind of opening the door for him. So I'm interested to see what type of move that he can make. I know the last image that Florida fans have of Jamari Lyons is not a great one. And I think that he's ready to kind of, move on from that and give fans something else for them to know him for. And I think that he will this season. So
no more Hawk Tua.
He was the first one. He went viral before she did.
The
OG. Yeah. So obviously, ready to see what he looks like. Something that I reported at Gators Online this week. I shouldn't be giving all this stuff away, Nick.
It's just a little tease. Listen, it's been out there for a little bit now. As I also learned, sometimes other fan bases will just take what you put and put it out there, Zach.
That's true. But one of the biggest questions that we have, we'll get into it, a little bit more in depthly here momentarily, but they are still figuring out what they got on the interior of the offensive line because of Caden Jones' emergence this offseason, as Nick alluded to. He's another guy that's trending up. They're now going to experiment with Cam Waits back at right guard, which is where he played during the 2022 season and started for the first time in his career in the Las Vegas Bowl. But then last season, he played offensive tackle coming off of his Achilles injury. He played left tackle in the spring and now is going to be going back to right guard. He will still be repping some at right tackle too, but right guard is kind of where they're going to see if he can kind of stick at and to obviously create more depth with Damian George and maybe potentially push him for that starting job. But as Nick said, right now, the top 2 guys heading into fall camp at right tackle are Brendan Crenshaw-Dixon and Caden Jones. So that is allowing them to see what Waits can do on the interior and if that can make them better at guard. So we'll get to see him throughout fall camp. I'm interested to see what that looks like and what type of depth that can create, because that is the biggest question mark to me, maybe on the whole team and definitely on the offensive side of the ball, is the guard position. And it's just so much unproven there. Like, I think they got enough depth. They've got enough guys that if one guy isn't getting the job done, they can throw somebody else in there and they're not just stuck with that person. But it's just so, Najee Harris has, this is now his first time as a full-time starter. Damian George has now moved from tackle to guard. We don't know what he's going to look like. We think it's going to be a better move for him. The coaches think that, but we don't know yet. Now you got Waits moving back to guard. Bryce Lovett was also playing offensive tackle. Now he's kind of settled in as a full-time guard. All these players that I just mentioned, they like a lot, but we just don't know how they're going to fare on Saturday at those positions. So that's something that we're going to find out and be monitoring in fall camp. But I'm definitely, Waits is an impressive human being, and whatever they can do to get him in the rotation and find a way to get him on the field, I think it'll make Florida's offensive line better. And then at receiver, Nick already said it, but you got Elijah Badger joining that room, and I think a lot of people are just penciling him in as a starting receiver. And is he the most likely to start? Yes, but he's got to go win that job. It's not like it's just he's gonna walk in and be handed to him. Now, part of that is because guys have made some moves this offseason. The Marcus Burks and Aiden Mizels of the world. Khalil Jackson, as much as Florida fans, or maybe some Florida fans, don't want to accept it, he is still one of the top receivers in that room. If they started a game, Nick, next week, Khalil Jackson would be one of the starting receivers along with Eugene Wilson and
we
Jameer
have
DK.
been consistent about this since the spring, and we've been called propagandists. We're spreading fake news.
Well, there was once upon a time where even I had to convince you. I was like, Nick, he is the leader of that room. If anything, like he is, from a veteran standpoint. Like now again, Badger shows up and balls out and learns the playbook and is making a bunch of plays in practice and doing stuff that others can't do. He's gonna ascend and be one of your top guys. But like that has to happen. And there's other guys that are chomping at the bit and are not going to just let this transfer come in and just take their playing time. They're not just sitting back and accepting that they're going to be backups or third teamers. So that's going to be I honestly, Nick, going into the offseason and getting ready for practice, didn't necessarily view the wide receiver position as one of the biggest position battles in camp. But after hearing about it and talking to some people, I think it is.
Well, I think we're also sleeping a little bit on Chim DK. And I think sometimes, listen, he's an older player like Graham Senior, redshirt senior.
He's also a Wisconsin transfer. Something about those Wisconsin transfers just doesn't get people excited.
Unless it's an offensive lineman. Buddy, you tell me Florida's getting an offensive guard from Wisconsin? Come on down, you corn-fed cowboy. That's him. Come on down. I think Chim DK, the relationship with him and Graham, I also think he's faster than we give him credit for. In NCAA football, they gave him all the credit for speed. My guy won the Heisman in one of the years I did it.
He ran a 4.46 at Wisconsin, and he's only gotten faster at Florida, according to what we've been told.
Which that's moving. Like you look at him, I'm like, this big, tall possession receiver, not so fast, my friend. So I think the relationship with him, literally thousands of reps between Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz has more reps after being at Florida a year, has more reps with Chim DK
than
anybody else on the roster.
Probably double the reps.
More than double. I mean, they were on the scout team together at Wisconsin, and they literally came up the depth chart together at Wisconsin. Talking to Graham again, it was funny. So Graham told us, he's like, yeah, some of the stuff that we were running, Chim would be like, or I would tell Chim, hey, it's this. And he would give him the Wisconsin play call. And Graham now said that in front of Billy. And Billy was like, what? He's like, yeah. And sometimes Chim would say, oh, this play we ran today in practice is like this at Wisconsin, kind of just showing the football IQ off of Jameer DK. So I went into the portal being very open and loud, saying Florida's receiver room needs to add depth and experience. I like Andy Jean. I like Aiden Mizell. I like Khalil Jackson. They needed to add depth and experience, and they went out and they did that.
Yeah. And I think that, there's no question, at least in my eyes, about where that stands. But there is some other question marks that we're going to try to find answers to here in the coming weeks. Before we get into our biggest questions in fall camp, want to give a shout out to Prairie Dental Center. The doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems, along with advanced skills and knowledge to provide better care to his patients. If you're having dental concerns or just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of options to meet your needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. Now, Nick and I have already alluded to some of the questions facing this team, some of the biggest storylines to follow in camp. but we can only choose one. I'll give mine. Nick will give his. What is your numero uno, biggest question for this team heading into fall camp, Nick? The floor is yours.
Mine is going to be the defense. As much flack as we give Billy Napier, as much flack as we give the play calling and the tempo and some of it. Listen, I'm with you there on some of it. The offense was not the issue. For a coach who had never fired anyone and took pride in the fact that he had never had to fire a coach, to within 36 hours of a season ending, going chop, axe and 2 coaches immediately. Florida has added 13 new players to the defensive side of the ball through high school and transfer portal. They've added 3 new coaches, including Ron Roberts, who is the creator of the defense that Austin Armstrong runs. The defense, how Ron Roberts is affecting the defense as a whole, the dichotomy between him and Austin, tackling, getting pressure on the quarterback, and not being the worst team not named Temple in terms of turnover margin are the biggest question marks for me heading into this season.
So just defense.
The entire defense. You have a 25-year-old quarterback. He'll be 25 in, I think, December, or 24 in December.
Yeah. As much as I have a question mark about the offensive line, and I think guard might be, and not I think, it is one of the biggest question marks. Part of me feels like Florida's going to get it figured out. Like they will be able to figure out 2 guards that they can have replace Richie Leonard and Micah Mazuka and be better on the offensive line. I don't know how that's going to look and play out. I think Najee Harris, I feel good about definitely being one of those not only starters at guard, but someone that's going to perform well at that position. I think the other one is still to be determined, and we don't know how, whether it's Damian George or Cam Waits or Bryce Lovett making the move from tackle to guard. We don't know how that's going to play out. But I do think out of those 3 that I just named, one of them will work out well. So to me, that's not the biggest question mark. If I had to pinpoint one thing on defense, the other thing I'll add before I get to my biggest, I also don't think that special teams is going to be a big deal because of the coaching rule change. It's just that is going to eliminate so much of the communication issues that they had on game day, how real it was in terms of what it was doing to hold them back, because we can talk about that. But I do think that between that and Joe Houston showing up, who ran special teams for the New England Patriots and was hired by Bill Belichick, I think Florida's going to be better on special teams. So with that being said, well, and obviously Jeremy Crawshaw. I mean,
thank you. First off, this is not a snitching show. We would never snitch. But
yeah.
Would never snitch, but I don't know that the rule change.
No, hold on. I was on the sideline. I saw my man Chris Couch standing all the way over to the side and not being able to coach the special teams. He's not going to have to play with this facade anymore and pretend that he can't be involved. Like, no, that's over. That's over.
You helped me because I was teetering on snitching. I'm just going to say across the country, it was a facade.
Yes. But now they don't have to pretend on game days anymore. Like it's full-fledged coaching going on, and that's
I think Joe Houston, his addition is really, really going to help. And listen, we did an interview with Jeremy Crawshaw, and he spoke glowingly of Chris Couch.
Yeah.
They provided us before that interview a ton of numbers that show that Florida is really good. And it's so funny because I went back to some of these Jim McElwain-isms stick with me. And it's your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. And while those numbers were good, there are just these gigantic disasters, embarrassing disasters that overshadowed everything else. And I think it's fair for fans to say, don't throw these numbers at me. I watched you go out 12 times with less than 11 people on the field, when all you need to do is go to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy a mat that has 11 circles on it and have an assistant athletic director of counting feet to see that that there's 11 pairs of feet on this mat and say, hey, we're ready to go. So I think Joe Houston coming in and getting another voice, and a voice that was very well respected in NFL circles, to come in and help that organization should show itself this fall.
Agreed. And I think that obviously too, on special teams, like when you think about some of the issues that they had, and some of the stuff that came up, like I do think that when you talk to those guys, and we've talked to Jeremy Crawshaw, we've talked to Chris Couch, we've talked to Joe Houston off the record, and now it doesn't matter, but like they each said that the rules as they were and the limitations that it put on the coaches on game day contributed to their errors, and that's just point blank period. And there's no way around it other than to change the rule, which has happened. So again, I say all that to get to the defense, and there's a lot of things that we can point to as what needs to be improved and what questions need to be answered. But the biggest one for me, Nick, as we see Sharif Denson with an interception in the spring game, tackling. Like, tackling to me, of all the things that were problematic on defense, to me, tackling was number one. And it's not hard when you look at the PFF grades from last season to see why the Gators struggled. And, to me, it's pretty obvious where their tackling deficiencies were. Now, the good news for the Gators is that their worst tacklers last season, by and large, are no longer on the team, according to Pro Football Focus.
A couple of them will be back in the swamp in September.
No doubt.
Texas A&M comes back.
No doubt. But some of Florida's worst tacklers last year, according to their PFF grade, were Scooby Williams. He had
September 14th.
He had a 39 grade, according to PFF. Miguel Mitchell, who was Florida's starting safety for the first part of the season until he got benched, had a 43 tackle grade. Jaden Hill, Florida's starting nickel, had a 49.3 tackle grade. And then also, there were some other guys that I'll mention. Now, the guy that had the worst tackle grade among a guy that started was RJ Moten. I'll give my man RJ a pass because he had a hand injury, was playing with a huge cast on his wrist and thumb basically the whole season after the first game.
He was in an operating room 1 week after the season ended.
Yes. So him finishing with the tackle grade that he did, we cannot hold against him. Plus, he's also playing a new position this year. I will note that some of the other guys that struggled as tacklers, Bryce Thornton, who took over for Miguel Mitchell in the starting lineup at safety, had a tackle grade of 51.9, and Sharif Denson, a tackle grade of 48.4, who is your projected starter now at the nickel. Those are two guys that were true freshmen, and if we're being honest, probably, Florida had no business starting two true freshman safeties, even though Jordan Castell played well. But you need to get better tackling from your safety positions. You need to get better tackling from your star, and you need to get better tackling from your middle linebackers. And with Scooby Williams out of the mix, with Miguel Mitchell out of the mix, with Jaden Hill, Who's going to step up to fill those voids, and are they going to be better tacklers? That is what we got to find out. And really, I mean, we'll hear how they're tackling during scrimmages and stuff, but we really won't tell until we get to the season, right? But though that's my biggest question mark, but I will give Florida fans a beacon of hope. The guy that we think is going to start at middle linebacker, replacing Scooby Williams, starting next to Shamar, who was a solid tackler last year. I think a 72 grade. The guy that we think is going to replace him is Pup Howard, who led the South Carolina Gamecocks last year in tackling, according to Pro Football Focus, as a true freshman. Played in every game, contributed, had several, I can't remember his total number of tackles, but he had an 88 tackle grade, that is very, very good. So that is something to feel good about with him being added to that linebacker room. And then the other guy to feel good about is Asa Turner. He had a tackle grade last year at Washington of 72.4. You pair him with Jordan Castell, who had a tackle grade of 76.8 and led Florida in tackles last year. That's something to feel encouraged potentially about. Now those are. Go ahead.
Turner had 26 tackles last year. Pup Howard had 19. Just doing a little producer work for you, Zach, doing the research there.
Because as for the folks that don't know, it's Florida's very lucky to even have Asa Turner on their roster because he played in 4 games last regular season due to injury, but then was able to play in the conference championship game and then all the playoff games for Washington, but those games did not count against his redshirt year. Therefore, he was able to transfer to Florida and be a Gator right now. But yes, that was why he only had about the same amount of tackles as Pup Howard, is because he only played in 6 games.
Yeah.
But
the year before had 52 tackles in 10 games. The 26 last year was in 7 games.
So, but we will add that was at Washington, and SEC is a different beast, and this is a step up in competition. So we will see how he transitions at safety, how Pup Howard will do, potentially going from a true freshman contributing role at South Carolina, where he did really well, but now he's going to be asked to be a full-time starter, making calls, playing a lot more snaps. Those tackles get harder to make. But that, to me, Nick, and obviously, along the front 7, they got to tackle well as a unit. But at safety and at linebacker was where they were really bad last year and have to get better.
Yeah, I mean, I've brought this up several times, but talking to Will Harris as he was getting done with early signing day, I mentioned, like, hey, have you even had time to look at your roster? He's like, I got the iPad with me now. It's loaded up, all the film, all the cut ups that I need. I'm going to watch it on the way back to Los Angeles to go collect my things. And then we're going to head back. I'm going to watch it. Scholarship offers flied out the door. He probably saw the tackling from his secondary and went, no. Trequez Bridges, DJ Douglas, and Asa Turner, 3 solid tacklers instantly. So, yeah, Florida clearly understands. It's not a secret. We're not blowing up their spot. It's plain as day that the tackling was not good enough, needs to be better.
Yep. So they've been working on that. We'll see, obviously, what that looks like once they get on the practice field next week. We cannot wait to get back out there. I know that you guys cannot wait to follow along with all of our coverage. We'll have practice reports, videos, board posts, everything at Gators Online. So just to circle back, we've got this special promo just for you guys that are listening to this show on YouTube and on the podcast platform that you use. Again, it is fall camp time, folks. Practice is here. The season is about to start. Do not miss our Florida football coverage. You will not be disappointed. Type in the UF code or the code UF1. Get 2 months of premium access. It's going to take you through all of fall camp, the first month of the season. A lot of action happening in Gainesville. We will be on top of it. You'll also be able to follow everything that's going down right now at the Grill in the Ville and all of Keith's coverage there. A huge recruiting event for the Gators to kind of wrap up their summer and turn the page, Nick. It's time for football, my friend. Talking season is over. Now, of course, now the lies get to be told. We get a month of lies being told.
Lion
talking season to lion season.
Get your lies ready. Sharpen your lies. Be ready to throw them. Lies will either be proven truths or exposed starting August 31st. But we are in the home stretch.
That's right. That's right. We're looking forward to it. We will see you guys next week to report on how the first couple practices went, what we got to see out there. And I know you guys are excited for it as we are. For Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Albaverdi. We'll see you guys